Hello everyone, hello and welcome to Truth Talk Tarot. This is where every day we try and uncover something else that's going on with us. If the title or the thumbnail pulled you in, there's a reason you're here. So let's dive in and see what this message is all about. So we're starting out with the Lovers card, number 6, the Lovers. And so I actually read this out yesterday. Funny enough, so the reading from yesterday was all about a choice that we had to make that we weren't wanting to make. And and I love the way that the book had talked about these two little wolves on here, on this card, because this was actually a clarifying card. I didn't use this as the main deck. So it's interesting that it seems like there's this reoccurring theme that seems to be happening this week. I may have to dial these readings back a little bit because trying to do them every day, I'm picking up the same energy because, it's the same kind of thought or theme that keeps wanting to come up at this time for us to look at. So we have here, this is the mirror position, this is the mask position, and the mask position is essentially why we're here. What's this reading about? So for this, we either have it's either around a choice, a decision that needs to be made, or it could be something that we're trying to come together with as far as we'll just keep going and see. Let's get some clarification because it's too soon to say what this is meaning. So I should have gone with my gut because I was about to say coming together with something or someone. So we have the communion card coming out here is clarification. And she's got all these little animals. They're actually all different types of birds. So it might be that you're waiting for communication from somebody. You're waiting to hear from somebody, or waiting to hear from, maybe it could be waiting to hear for a job that you applied for, so that you could come together with that. It's a coming together with something is what I see. So this is almost like a little bit of a pattern. We'll see what mask kind of wants to uncover and unveil itself at this time, but it has to do with communication, waiting for communication, and we'll see what that brings up in us. What's being kind of brought to the surface at this time for us to review around, anticipating this communication or desiring this communication. Because if you're like me, you might be somebody that when you're waiting on something, especially if it's something important, you start getting up in your head a little bit and you start overthinking something, or you get a little bit anxious or something like that. And those are all behaviors that are learned behaviors of how to react to a certain situation. So what we're kind of here doing is to help you understand some of these behaviors that you might have, so therefore you can then maybe through that awareness of what behaviors you have, you can evaluate them and understand, do I need to shift and change something, or am I good with this? Doing that self-evaluation process, all to make you a better person, because sometimes you can sit there and say, yeah, I'm fine with this. I understand I have this behavior, but you know what? I'm good with it because it's who I am, and that's what we're all here about. It's uncovering your true self, helping you to uncover your true self, and to do that, in order to really understand who you are, you have to keep asking yourself questions and bringing things up to say, is this behavior still serving me? Is it something I want or not? And this is way too many cards. For this, I'll go ahead and look at them, because the next position is about the mirror. So there's 4 cards that came out here, and I'm going to go ahead and go through these because they obviously fell out for a reason. So we have the Moon card, which is imagination and perception. So perception, and the Hermit, which is all about contemplation. So we have perception, contemplation. We have dedication to progress, or progress with the 8 of Pentacles here. And then we have the Nine of Pentacles, which is all, it says, it's got a spider and says it's all about security and abundance. So we have this progress and we have this security, abundance, this almost need for a sense of security when it comes to something, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe you're waiting to hear from this new, like I said, a job. I'm feeling that very strongly, maybe for quite a few of you, as there's anticipation of wanting or needing or desiring, a new job that might pay you a little bit more, because that'll provide more security. It'll provide that abundance. But it's also, there's this contemplation, and imagination. And I kind of said that kind of comes through with the fact that sometimes our thoughts can run away with us a little bit when it comes to the unknown. Our imagination can get the best of us, so to speak. So I really am feeling drawn into that. So in with the Hermit, a hermit is all about, like, it is quiet introspection, and that with that imagination and things running wild, that can definitely happen when we're in that kind of hermit mode. But with this, this all falling out around the mirror position. The mirror position in my spread is all about what's being reflected back to us in our external world that kind of needs to be looked at this time. So this is telling me, it really is about putting in the work towards something that you desire, is what's coming through here, of what's being reflected back to us at this time. Is there something that we need to probably put a little bit of effort into? We need to take a moment to have some careful contemplation on what our next action is going to be, and that's what's being mirrored back to us from the world around us, is what are we, what can we do at this time, careful contemplation of next steps or next actions. So let's go ahead. I think there was enough cards that came out there that help us really understand what was being mirrored back to us, that I really don't feel like we need to clarify that. But I keep being told to read the message on the communion card here for this. This deck is the Wisdom of the Wild Things Oracle deck, and so we have 2, which is communion. So it should be really easy to find here. Yeah. So draw your allies close to you right now. It's a time to commune with those that you trust, whether you need support, guidance, or simply a kind listening ear that helps you truly heal or hear yourself. Are you being asked to express your needs in a safe, protected environment? Seek your trusted friends, share, let yourself be witnessed and received. I like this. This is interesting, because this just happened to me, or for me, in the last 24 hours. I had somebody that is a trusted friend of mine that actually was there for me in a way that actually did make me feel seen and heard, which was beautiful. It was beautiful. And so it's kind of asking us with that. I'm kind of glad I read this, because it tells me that we might be asking at this time, there may be something that we're a little bit nervous about, or something that is like there's an action maybe that we need to take, and we're maybe not sure what direction to go, or what we should do at this time, or what that next step is. And it does have to do, like, I do feel like there's something that needs to be taken action on. With the Lovers coming out, it's still that choice, so it's still like there's a decision. I'm just getting that coming up as a decision, especially when we had, I think there was one of these cards that had, did it have decision on it? No, it didn't. I thought it did. Was it? I thought there was one that said something about a decision. Maybe I must have misthought. Okay, so it basically says, let yourself be witnessed and received. And if you have no one to hold space for you right now, do not underestimate the invisible allies. That's all the invisible allies are all the things like the animals around us. Explain your heart in a meditation or visual if you need support, because that can be an active source of support in your life if you don't have anybody physical or tangible. Some of the greatest allies can be those that are unseen. Confide your truth, express your heart, experience the communion of your belonging. So it kind of tells me at this time there might be, for some of you it might help to journal. If there's something you're going through at this time that you might be having a little bit of difficulty with, and maybe you don't have anybody you feel like you can turn to, that you can commune with, that's somebody that you feel like you can share your heart and your vulnerability and your space with, you can always journal. And it's weird to hear me say that out of my mouth, because I'm not someone who does. I know, like, I hear that all the time, from, oh, you should journal. And interesting enough, I don't very often. When somebody tells me to journal, it's like, can be very like, yeah, whatever, to me. And but it doesn't necessarily, it's just finding an outlet, like, to help express that. And I have found, like, funny enough, that I have somebody that, and I know that I probably kind of annoy the heck out of them that I do this, but they're gracious enough with me and care about me enough that they're willing to let me do this. But, like, I have somebody that I feel totally safe expressing everything to, and I will blow up their phone with text messages, like long, like blow up their phone at times, because that's, like, I know that person reads everything that I share to them. And so I feel seen and I feel heard. And even though it's through text, it's not journaling, like, it is journaling, but it's not at the same time. So there's ways to express that. Like, you could do social media posts, or you could, whatever feels like the right medium for you. And that's kind of why I kind of went off on this kind of personal note, because it can be, it doesn't have to be journaling in a journal. It's just finding a way, an outlet, or a medium that you can express, what's kind of going on, to help get the imagination flowing, and get that, like, contemplation and imagination flowing, so that you can understand the next actions that you need to take right now. I hope that helps clarify things a little bit of where we're going with this reading. So it's really telling me that you might, like, right now at this time, you might be someone that's struggling a little bit with something, grappling with something, struggling with something, or not knowing what decision, choice, the Lover's card coming out, a decision, a choice that you need to make, which came out very strongly yesterday, of somebody that needed to make a choice but was torn between the choices. That, like, both paths were equally inviting, and that, somebody having a hard time, or knowing that they need to make a choice and move in a certain direction, but they're not quite ready to let go of, knowing that they have to let go of one thing to move forward. And on that thumbnail, I had, the child going off to college, where they don't necessarily want to leave home, but they also know they have to, and so they have to do it, but there was that choice, you can stay home or go off to college. And this is somebody that made, was in that moment where, they're leaving their house for the first time. And so that's a daunting thing. And sometimes it's hard to take that next step. And so that was the reading yesterday. Today, it's more about, I feel like the message is coming through, although it's kind of still tied with a choice and decision. It's more about that contemplation, that there's a need to kind of, take a moment to contemplate your next best actions towards something. We kind of went way off of on a side rail there, but that's okay, because whatever comes out. It's meant to be. Why are so many cards coming out with this deck? Maybe it's just the slickness of the deck. Those didn't really flip. Okay, see, that one just slid out, but it was in a different way. So we have the Six of Crystals. This crystals Is that my, yeah, that's my pentacle. So more pentacle energy, more grounded pentacle. This is the flame position. So this next position is a flame position in my spread. And it's basically all about, kind of what's the driving force behind, what's going on right now at this time, internally, what's coming up internally for you. And we have the Six of Pentacles. So the Six of Pentacles can be, it can be a card of give and take, and I like that this deck tends to have like more positive energy. Like the words that they use to associate with each card are very positive in nature, which I kind of like. So we have synergy, which is that kind of a balance, of the reciprocity, the give and take, the natural flow, that there's an even keel balance of give and take. And then we have gratitude. So, and then there's two people or two little otters, or that's not otters. What are those called? The little merrats. What are those called? I can't think of what those animals are called. It's like a mercat or something. So I'm really feeling here, because so up in the sky you can barely see it, but there's like clouds, but the sun is coming out. See, the sun is coming out there. And so and I like the way these two are standing. It's almost like, the one in the back was almost trying to protect, maybe if it was going to rain. They were like it's almost like in a protective kind of stance. So it's telling me there might be something you're trying to protect at this time, that might be leading to making it hard to know what the next action or next step that you have to take. We're definitely going to have to clarify that. So what's coming up here? What can we clarify? Clarify the Six of Pentacles. Clarify the Six of Pentacles. I didn't realize I was shaking the table. Clarify the Six of Pentacles for me, please. So we have remember who you are. Remember who you are. And it's funny, I said there was like this protective energy. And if you think, remember who you are, where do you come from? You come from, your upbringing, your parents, and this could almost be like a mother or father mercat, and I did bring up yesterday's thumbnail about the kid going away to college. So it's almost like this is a parent and a child of some type that's coming through. So there might be a tie here with our upbringing and something from, that we learned, a learned behavior growing up that's coming forward, that's driving, because this is the flame position. So it's all about what is driving us right now to, why is this coming up at this time? So it's tied to something possibly from our childhood. But I do like that it's like a protective thing. So I don't get something negative necessarily from this, but no masks or learned behavior are necessarily really good or bad. It's just the way we've always done things. And so when something comes out in these readings, it's that moment of reflection to take a break, take a breath, and say, is this something, a behavior that I do or don't do? Is this something that I am grappling with at this time, that I'm struggling with? And then you can have, through that awareness, as I said before, through that awareness, it can help you, maybe through whatever you're trying to grapple with, or whatever's coming up at this time to look at for that review. And it's funny because we are under Mercury retrograde, which is all about a time of review. And we're getting ready to go into a new moon. If you're watching this reading when it's released, we're getting ready to go. And these readings are timeless, so, that doesn't matter when you watch them. But with us going into this new moon, that is another time of interesting enough, the new moon is a time when we should be thinking about what we want to do over the next month. What do we want to accomplish over the next month? The full moons are always about reflecting on what you did this past month, so that you can change things by the new moon. So you can know going into the next month what you're going to work on or change or do better. So we're getting ready to go into a new moon, which is all about, like I said, this is a time of what next steps or what actions am I going to take to do better, do something differently than I've done before. And we have this, from what was being mirrored at us, is there something that we need to take, there's actions we need to take, but we need to reflect on those actions or those next steps. So it's really like, this is a time to take a moment to figure out what am I doing next is what's coming through. Let's go ahead. I'm going to look up, this is number 39. So 39, if you're 39, that might be significant for you. Also, that breaks down to 12 or 3. So either of those numbers could be significant or important to you as well. So 39, where are you? Oh, that's almost at the end. So the moment boils down to this: you are not your circumstances. So remember that, because that's a really big one. I like that that's coming through. So that's like what's coming up, bubbling up at the surface right now, is maybe you're thinking that, maybe you're thinking that you're a victim of your circumstances right now, that you feel like you're kind of stuck where you are. You're not your crisis, you're not your pain, you're not your shame or your diminishment. Your anxiety and your traumas are lying to you. Endeavor to remember the truth in your core. Like, I have no idea how, it's a Greek goddess's name that I do not know how to pronounce, and if I try to say it, it's going to butcher it very badly. Namansine? No, I'm going to butcher it. So basically, like the Greek goddess of memory, you are starlight and seashell, open moon pearl and mothwing. Now is the time to remember who you were before the world told you who you should be. And that's interesting. I absolutely love this. This is absolutely everything these readings are about. So if you're here, this is like everything. I feel like I need to capture this, somehow and give this person credit, because this really explains why we're here quite a bit. Is to do this work right here that they're talking about. Allow yourself to take up all the space you need to express your particular genius. Let yourself love who and what you love. We go back. Oh, look at that. How that ties in. We go back to the Lover's card. Communing with things, writing things down. Maybe it's about writing things down that we love, or looking at, maybe that's the next actions what's coming up at this time, is there's this need to maybe examine what it is you're putting your energy in. Really think about what it is that you love and love doing, or love how do you want to move in the world, and what brings you happiness, what brings you joy. Let yourself love who and what you love unabashedly. Make no apologies for what feels most natural and alive to you. Call up the wisdom of the ancestors and let that swim through your veins, carrying the song of the sky and sea. Remind yourself you only need to honor your nature to embody true belonging. And that's absolutely 100% correct. I mean, that's the heart of my book. It's the heart of these readings. It's out here to help you remember who you are at your core self, before the world got a hold of you, before the world taught you who you should be. And I love that this actually came out, because I said that I feel like that is like a parent and a child. So this is like what you were taught growing up. And so with that coming in the flame position, it's what is motivating us right now to what's driving this to come to the surface. Well, it's obvious, that there's something that we were taught, or something in our environment growing up that is coming up to be evaluated at this time. And it seems to be like it might be centered around worth issues, or being afraid to possibly go after what it is that you want, or go after what it is that you love in life. Because I think we had something in the communion that kind of talked about that a little bit, about, that there might be a choice that needs to be made, or going after communing with something. There's definitely this theme that's kind of coming through. This is going to be a little bit challenging to come up with the title and in the thumbnail, but obviously if you're here, I did a good job of that, and hopefully that it makes sense with this reading. That's always the challenge, is making sure that it kind of, really does describe the reading. So let's go ahead. We'll go on to our next position. Our next position is the boundary position. The boundary position. So this is essentially what we need to, what may be draining us, what may be holding us back, what may be limiting us, or at this time distracting us, things like that. It's what we need to say no to. So we have we have a lot of acorns as fire. So we have the Knight of Wands, or the Knight of Acorns here, which is action and drive. So we have action and drive coming up in boundaries. Well, what did I say? I said, there's this need to take next action. So there is this need to take an action. But with this coming up in the boundaries position, I feel like we don't want to make impulsive action, and that kind of makes sense in a way, because we do have like all these cards of contemplation, of really like using our inner wisdom, using kind of having a little bit of fun, playing around with our creativity and our imagination, to come up with a plan, a kind of a plan of action, the next steps, kind of forming a strategy a little bit, if you will, around what needs to come next. So it doesn't surprise me that the boundary at this time is maybe to not act impulsively in some way, and not go after something without some kind of thought behind it, of why, maybe contemplating why we're wanting to maybe go after something without thinking it through. Maybe that's what it is. I'm going to go ahead and get clarification on this as well, because I feel like, so interesting enough, so it looks like to me in this card, this deck typically doesn't have a lot of like items in it other than the animal. So for me to see, like, well, first I saw these things in his body, and so that tells me like, oh, the inner workings, like there's, like something internally, like, and there's all these different things, so it's like different things within us. And then there's this little table of, like, I think food that he's kind of stepping on or walking on in that card, and which is really interesting, considering that we have this boar or pig or boar, it looks like a boar, and you think about a pig or a boar or something like that, they'll eat about anything, so it's interesting, like, to have him walking on the food on the table, like almost ignoring it. So it's like there's something that is almost like an opportunity that's being ignored, or like, where is that a monk? No, that's a boar. It's a boar. It took me a minute. At first I thought that maybe that, I second guessed because of the tail. It made me kind of think it might be some kind of monkey. But with this boar, it's really like he's almost, he's ignoring what's, where he's walking. He's very focused on where he's going ahead. Like, he doesn't care what's around him, and that's that like I said, I feel like almost like an impulsive energy that might be coming through at this time, that might need to be kind of restricted a little bit, because we might be too focused on the future, that we might be not quite paying attention to the present, or we're not making that plan of action to before we move forward. Or maybe we're putting the cart before the horse. That just came through really strongly. Putting the cart before the horse. I'm gonna have to remember that for the title and stuff, because I really feel like that's what it is. That's what's coming through, is this desire, like we put the cart before the horse, and we get ahead of ourselves. That's the energy coming through. We get ahead of ourselves. Thank you, Spirit. So we have 22, bloom in the mud. So, and that's interesting that it's coming out on that boar card, with the boar, with that, what was that, the Knight of Wands, or the Knight of Acorns. So, bloom in the mud, the pigs play, and boars and stuff like to wallow in the mud. And so they enjoy that. So it's like, bloom, blossom. We had this talk about be yourself, be yourself card that came out with what's coming up at this time, for us to read, or, like what is driving, or this need to be ourselves, this need to be okay doing what we want to do, going after what we want to do. But I feel like there is this need of taking the introspection that we had with the Hermit and the Moon, this reflective period before we act. Don't put the cart before the horse, sort of thing. So I do want to go ahead and get one more with that. But I do like that bloom in the mud, because it really is like, let something grow out of who you authentically are. Like, really, and that's why I feel like there's this need that's coming through to really maybe take a moment and think about who you really are, or what do you really desire. And that's where we come back to, the journaling thing. And maybe there's like, maybe you think you know what you want, but maybe deep down, maybe what you desire or what you want is what you've been taught, not actually who you are. And that came through. I think that's what is coming through to be looked at and evaluated at this time, because of what we read about this card here. It talked all about that, about the fact, like, you might be doing things or walking in the world, or choosing things in the world, going after things, or choosing things, or making choices in the world based on what you were taught growing up, but it's not true to who you are and where you should be going for yourself. So that can create a little bit of friction, because I can relate in a way to the energy that's coming through here, because so I had, my mother, I do love her very much, but she had the tendency of always, like, of course, looking at things from her perspective, because that's the life and experience she knew. So there's nothing wrong with that. But who she is as a person and who I am as a person are two completely different things. And I respect what she shares with me, but she feels like that's the choices I need to make, but that's based on her experiences and her wisdom and who she is, and the choice that she would make for herself. I am not I am not her. So I tend to make choices that aren't choices that she particularly likes. And it's not because I'm making bad choices. No, I'm making the choice that's right for me. And sometimes we do get caught up in something like that, where we might, we listen to other people because we may not know who we truly are. We aren't confident or really know who we are enough that we listen to somebody else's advice, or go after something thinking it's what we want, but it really is a result of that decision was based off of our conditioning and programming while we were while we were growing up. And so we have to be very careful of that. And that's why I think like this is coming up right now, is there is this need to move, toward a certain direction that's being felt within you possibly, but the universe is kind of saying, hold your horses, don't put the cart before the horse, hold your horses, hold the horses, and for a moment, and let's get the cart in order. Let's take a moment, get it hitched to the horses, know what direction we're going. The chariot card is coming through really strongly in my mind right now. I'm seeing the chariot, the emperor driving the chariot, in a direction. But the chariot card can be this very fast moving energy, and it can, and then they're trying to, the emperor on that card is trying to rein in the horses, and usually you see him trying to go in different directions, and it's supposed to, usually it's a white and a black horse, and it's supposed to represent your shadow self, and your light self, like your shadow aspects and light aspects, the yin and the yang, the part in you that is, like one's pulling you here, one's pulling you there, and there's this need to get them in line so that you can move forward. Like once you get, because it's your ego and your heart and soul, it's the heart, head over heart decisions, so one thing's pulling you one way, so you have to get your head and your heart aligned so that you can go in the direction you want to go. And maybe that's what you're feeling at this time, is a little bit inside of you, is like you want to go one way, but at the same time, like there's something telling you that's maybe the wrong decision. So there's this little bit of friction inside of you that you're feeling, that maybe you're making the wrong choice, but it feels right, but logically it doesn't feel right, like where your head and your heart aren't aligning, because one thing is telling you to go this way, one thing is telling you to go that way, but it really has to do with the friction is coming up as a result of conditioning that you've learned, or core programming that you've established, that maybe needs to be rebooted, so to speak. If we go along with that analogy that was coming through, possibly needs to be rebooted at this time, like that some kind of program that you've been running on needs to be examined and looked at and rebooted, because it's not maybe aligning with your true self. It might be like an example that I gave where, my mother, and that's where I had to set my boundary. And funny enough, we're still on the boundary position. I had to kind of set my boundary with my mother and say, I appreciate, that this is what you want me to do, but it's not who I am. Like this isn't right for me. It's not that I don't appreciate that advice, but I have to do what's best for me, ultimately, even though she didn't really feel like that I was doing what was best for me, but that was from her perspective, not from my perspective. So it could be something like that, and you could be dealing with something like that even, and it wouldn't come up unless it was for somebody. So we have transition, 5 transition. Now I am going to say with this card, the very, very first thought that came into my mind is somebody that might be going through a gender change. So if you are somebody who is maybe challenged with that at this moment, like trying to figure that all out, that is definitely where you can face family members that may not understand that, may not agree with that, maybe, and so they may be tearing you one way, or like it's opposite of what you're feeling is right for you. So this is all in the boundary position. So this is standing up for something that you believe is right for you. And so if that's the case, if you're somebody who is thinking about doing, some kind of gender change or something like that, or identifying in a different way, or something like that, around those types of identities, then this reading might be for you, because I'm seeing that, you know, because we are talking about a choice and something that's very, like a decision, that a choice that needs to be made. But there's this, you know, like the gravity of the situation is important enough that there is this moment of reflection that needs to take place. And I feel like with the family card, or the, you know, when we had this with the, you know, like I said, I felt like parent and child there. And it could be, you know, especially because that's the Six of Pentacles, and it's all about this reciprocity and having gratitude. You could have a parent, if you're going through something like that, you could have a parent that is, you know, saying, you know, well, I did X, Y, Z for you. You're not going to do this because I told you no, you know. And then it's like there's that lack of respect that could come through, you know, and that could be really challenging. And if you're dealing with something like that situation, my heart goes out to you. I know that has to be difficult. It's never easy when we have to go against our loved ones in any way, shape, or form, when we have to stand up and stand in our truth. You know, it's easier with strangers. It's very hard with family, you know, and people we care about, because we love them and we don't want to hurt them. But at the same time, we have to be true to ourselves as well. And I feel like that's what is really coming strongly through here, is that kind of choice that needs to be made, where it is really like, dang if I do, dang if I don't, you know, because somebody is not going to be happy with me if I make this choice. Because if I follow what really is really true to me, then I'm going to maybe lose people, or I'm going to upset people, or, you know, it's going against everything I've been taught, you know, something like that, because it could be going against like a religious belief. Maybe you're raised in a certain religious or upbringing or culture, and something you want to do is taboo or against, you know, that, you know, the doctrine of that religion. You know, it could be something like that. I'm just giving examples out here so, you know, you can kind of understand where I'm coming from and what's coming through the reading at this time. So let's go ahead and move on. We talked enough about that. And then the next position is the wave position. This what needs to be felt at this time. And we have the king interesting enough, the King of Feathers, which is the King of Swords. This is air energy. This is the king of the air energy. Interesting enough, because I talked about strategy. He is my strategist. Whenever I see the King of Swords come out, I think chess, somebody that's playing chess. You know, they're thinking moves ahead. They're thinking about their actions. They're planning everything out. They're strategizing, you know, something. They're going to, you know, this is somebody who definitely thinks with their heart. Thinks with their head. They're very strategic, very logical, very, you know, very head over heart minded when it comes to doing something. And so this is coming interesting. I mean, for this to come up in our what needs to be emotionally felt, it's almost like I'm feeling like truth. Like there's this truth that needs to come through. And this even says logic and justice. So I feel like what's being felt at this time is justice for yourself. You know, like being fair to yourself, being just to yourself, you know, really being truthful to yourself. You know, really getting to the root of the problem of what is keeping you, you know, from giving yourself the justice you deserve. What is getting in the way? You know, what is, you know, doing the reasoning and logic. And that's why, again, it's coming through strongly, this desire to keep telling you, like, for some of you, journal in some way or get it out in some way, because I think it's really going to help you work through whatever. If this is resonating, it's going to help you work through whatever needs to be worked through at this time. I'm going to go ahead. I don't think I want to clarify or need to clarify that. We're going to go ahead and go into the last position. The last position is the permission position. This is kind of where we wrap things up a little bit, but this is the this is the sacred yes. So this is the sacred yes spread. This is the heart of it. The final position. This is when we allow ourselves. What should we be allowing ourselves to do or say yes to at this time? Where should we be taking that action? And I really love that behind this antelope, big and bright, is the sun. Okay, so I mean that's I saw that first before I even saw the antelope, as I see this bright sun, and I keep thinking, let your inner light shine through. Let yourself be seen. Really your true self. Let your true authentic self be seen, be appreciated, be valued. Like I kind of talked about, in the last 24 hours, I had someone do that to me, and I can tell you, when I woke up this morning, I was like on top of the world. I felt better than I had ever been. I've felt in a long, long time, to be seen and heard and valued in that way. And so I feel like that's what, that's even coming through here, is this need to that story is coming through, and it happened for a purpose, to say this is a time to be seen and heard. And if you're not around people that are valuing you as your, who you want to be, especially if you're grappling with, something, making some kind of identity change, make sure you're around people that support you. And if you don't feel like you have people to support you, talk to the animals, or journal, or like I said, get creative on how you, work through some of these things. Because you can just talk to, if you have a pet, talk to your pet, that's somebody you could probably trust and talk to, and that they're not gonna say something that's, they're gonna love you, whatever you talk to them and say to them, they're not gonna ridicule you or make you feel small or anything like that, so there are ways to do it. You can just say it on the wind, or even if you don't feel like, you can work through it in your mind. I mean, the King of Swords is air energy and mind energy, but we have to be careful with that, because sometimes getting it on paper or something like that, where we can look back and see what we wrote. Sometimes epiphanies and things will come through that we didn't think about when we were writing it, and we can see patterns and things, see things like that. And I say patterns, and I remember I said he's my chess player. So it's patterns, strategy, things like that. So we have the Traveler. I didn't even look at what the card was, and it's the Fool card. It's the Traveler, and we have adventure and potential. Are you brave enough? Are you willing enough to, really step in your truth and go after, go on this path of potential and growth of your true self? I still want to go ahead, and I do want to clarify that. Give me a card on this Traveler card, the Fool. Clarify that okay. Clarify this for me, the Traveler card. Where should we go from here? Or what are we saying yes to at this time? What do my viewers need to say yes to? This cards like to come out lately with this deck, and it's interesting. They're coming out. These two cards have come out together a couple times now. So we have the anxiety, quiet the anxiety monster, and remembering the wooby. And so the anxiety monster, of course, is us getting in our head and letting our thoughts run away with us and get the best of us, or it causes anxiety within us. Maybe somebody is causing you anxiety because they're putting thoughts in your head, because they're telling you something. Maybe it is those thoughts from your upbringing that is telling you to do one thing when your heart is telling you another, because what your upbringing and your conditioning and what you learned in society does not align with what you truly desire for yourself. So those are these contradictions, and this is a very contradicting energy. There's some kind of contradiction, some kind of rub that's coming up at this time, and so there's a need to work through that. Not just act, but work through the issue is what's coming through very strongly. Remembering the wooby is like a security blanket. Remember the time when you felt held, when you felt nurtured, when you felt comforted, when you felt seen, when you felt valued, when you felt heard. that's what that represents. So it really is like it's almost like a find your tribe, like reading coming out of find your truth, find your tribe, find the people that support you, find that really support you, that really care about you, that that's the direction, I think, of where it's wanting us to go, or what it's wanting us to say yes to at this time. Is if you don't have those people, go after finding those people that are going to bring you that happiness, that are going to see you, the illumination. I said the sun, I'm seeing, shine your light, like really illuminate who you are, and let the people that align with you, that really see you, that really appreciate you, those are the people you want to be surrounding yourself with at this time. And if you don't have those, it's saying to go find them. Okay, so I think that's where we're going to leave this reading. I thank you very much. I do have my book, We Are Not What We've Been Taught. So if you want to dive into more about and reveal more about what conditionings and limiting beliefs and things that you may or may have not learned as you grew up and experienced life, and you want to dive into unraveling some of those, that's what my book's all about. So it's available. It's down in the description box if you're interested. I thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. I wish you the very best. See you on the next one. Bye, guys.